Okay, peeps, welcome back. So the Bitcoin halving is here. Let's talk about when potentially these grayscale trusts could top out. So let's get it. All right, so first thing I want to go over before we go into the content, I'm going to bring this up one more time. So if you guys want to sign up for the channel memberships to get early access to our content, you can do that. Just go over here and click on this join button. You'll basically see this you should see this when the video pops up. If you're not seeing it, let us know and we'll try to figure out what's going on, but it shouldn't be a problem at this point. We did a lot of research into this. So you basically click the join button to get member access or membership. So it'll give you all the information here. It's basically $25 a month. Again, you can, buy this and or cancel it anytime you want to. As you can see here, with this little disclaimer that they have, you'll get one of these badges and or emojis, and it will show publicly somehow either on the channel or on a video or something like that. We'll have to keep a lookout for this. So it's still relatively new to us, but again, I would say that the price of this is really honestly nothing compared to what pretty much anybody that's in the finance space is going to make. So if you think it's worth the value of your money and time to get the content earlier in the day or whenever your earliest convenience, go ahead and sign up for it. That's how you are able to do it. So first thing we'll go over in the content here is we'll take a look at the Bitcoin halving. So again, the Bitcoin halving did just happen. Funnily enough, it actually happened on 420. Funny how it has a way of, the crypto space has a way of doing things along the lines of memes. So the halving happened on 420. We all know what that means. The previous top for Bitcoin's price was 69K. We all know what that means. So there's actually something interesting in here I wanted to read to you guys that probably puts it better than I put it before, and that's this little piece right here. So it says, past halving price performance. It is always a debate on what Bitcoin will do in terms of pricing for a halving event. Some people believe that the halving is already priced in by the market, and thus there's no expectation for the price to do anything. That's people that are more forward-looking, but we all know that Bitcoin and altcoin, generally speaking, and the Grayscale Trust tend to surprise people. So it says here that others believe that due to price equilibrium, a halving of supply should cause an increase in price if demand for Bitcoins is to equal or greater than what it was before the halving event. Below is a chart showing the past performance. We can take a look at that. As you guys can see, this is the third halving. That was 2020 halving right there. We all know that Bitcoin basically went from a dump of down to 3K all the way to 69K, even though it doesn't show it on this chart. So pretty much what this whole piece right here is saying is what we've been saying this entire time, is that the spot Bitcoin ETFs have been buying Bitcoin, and the price of Bitcoin has been going parabolic ever since. We've currently been in a cool-off phase, which is to be expected right around the time of the halving. Anytime Bitcoin retests all-time high, there is always some kind of resistance or pushback and or chop and maybe a slight correction before we end up going higher. That does happen. It's happened nearly every single cycle. We've gone over that with you guys, but the takeaway from this is pretty much that with the spot Bitcoin ETFs, that is the demand shock. Okay. So the demand is definitely there. It's still there. They're still buying, just not as much. Because of course, a lot of these newbies, they'll get into the space and they'll be like, oh yeah, I want to buy Bitcoin at 70,000. And I'm like, well, dude, if you were going to buy Bitcoin, you should have bought it all the way down at 20,000. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Of course, the price is going to start dumping right before the halving. A lot of these people, they just get into the space having absolutely no idea what they're doing. Just zero idea. They're just completely clueless. So chances are pretty good they're probably freaking out about that, or I shouldn't say way up here, but basically where the current top is 70,000, and they're like, crap, it's going down. Let me sell out of my position. So long story short, the demand shock has already taken place. We've seen that with the spot Bitcoin ETFs. Now the supply shock has taken place with the Bitcoin halving. So if the demand shock remains consistent and or increases, we are definitely going to see the price of Bitcoin and altcoins increase. And I am willing to bet that most likely we're still going to see a roll-off out of the Bitcoin dominance from Bitcoin into the altcoins. That I'm pretty certain that's going to happen. It's never failed throughout any cycle. So anyways, let's take a look at these Grayscale trusts. Before we do that, actually, let's take a look at Bitcoin first. So as you guys can see, a lot of the crypto market is actually moving up. So what was the time frame between the time that Bitcoin had its halving and the top? As you guys can see here, April 2020. We'll go over here to the top. As you guys can see, it started topping out at its pretty close to its absolute peak at about February, so roughly about 10 months later. And then the absolute top for the first half of the last bull cycle was in April, so that's roughly almost exactly 1 year later. So basically, what we can gather from this is that if it's to remain true this time around, then Bitcoin's true cycle peak should not actually be until April of next year, because again, the Bitcoin halving just took place. And again, this was 1 year later. So 1 year later from now would be April 2025. So we'll take a quick look at the dominance to kind of gauge when the roll-off period for that started. So you can see that the peak of the Bitcoin dominance was in December of 2020. So it actually peaked before Bitcoin topped out. That makes sense because a lot of the whales and the smart money, they're going to be selling as Bitcoin's getting higher and higher in price. Again, the whole notion of selling into strength, buying into weakness. And so pretty much the Bitcoin having started dropping roughly about 2 months before, I should say the Bitcoin top started topping out. The Bitcoin dominance started topping out roughly about 2 months before the Bitcoin top. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. But the real move from Bitcoin into altcoins did not start happening until roughly about, I'd say, a month or 2 months after the Bitcoin dominance topped out. So, or it started moving a month to 2 months after the Bitcoin dominance topped out. And then roughly about a month or so after Bitcoin itself topped out, then we saw the rollover out of Bitcoin into the altcoins via the Bitcoin dominance. So gauging the altcoins will kind of give us an estimate of when the Grayscale Trust could potentially top out here in this upcoming cycle. Of course, nothing's perfect. These are pretty much just estimations at this point. So let's get rid of that. I don't know why it's doing that. So as you guys can see, that these weren't yet in existence. So the halving was like somewhere back here. And then pretty much the price of LTCN BCH, or well, LTCN in this case, it didn't do much. It was up here. That's probably, generally speaking, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 markup phases on Bitcoin before Bitcoin actually starts ripping to the upside. We'll see like small ticks up in Bitcoin. So like something like this, then a little sideways, then something like this, then maybe a little sideways down, and then boom, Bitcoin starts ripping. So that explains why LTCN went down. So pretty much until October, November timeframe of the halving year is when LTCN started really seriously moving up. So that's roughly around the time that Bitcoin was retesting all-time highs. So we've already had that, but we haven't had the Bitcoin halving yet. So if this is to remain true, we won't see LTCN top out until the end of the year. However, we could see LTCN and BCHG start to move up in the next couple of months. Considering that Bitcoin is already at all-time highs, and that usually doesn't happen until the end of the year, this move could happen sooner. That's just something to keep in mind. But generally speaking, LTCN is going to top out roughly around November, December of this year. So BCHG, again, same thing, around November, December of this year. As you guys can see, during Bitcoin's markup and or consolidation phase after the halving, the BCHG price kind of just went down until Bitcoin started really ripping to the upside. And then, of course, because Bitcoin Cash is an oscillator, then this went up just like Litecoin. So HZEN, this one was actually not around. It was not around during the previous halving. So as you guys can see, we kind of had a sell-off here, not really sure what happened, but then the price went up. And then it kind of just went down. So, oh shoot, my bad. Yeah, this is actually October 2021. So yeah, this was not even around during the previous bull run. So we don't have any data on this. So here's what I'm going to do. Since we don't have any data, we're actually going to take a look at the underlying. So I think that this is actually not the oldest chart on Horizon, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Horizon's been around a lot longer. So let's take a look at Binance here. Yeah, okay, so this is a little bit longer. So let's look at this one. Okay, so as you guys can see, the price of Horizon did start actually ripping up pretty hard, roughly about the same month that Bitcoin was testing previous all-time highs. So based on that indication and that alone, we could say that HZEN is probably going to start ripping once Bitcoin gets some serious movement above that 70K level, once it starts pushing like 80, 85, 90K. Anytime between now and the end of the year, considering Bitcoin's at all-time highs now, this is definitely a possibility. We could see HZEN start to move up pretty quickly by then. So ETH Classic, this basically just goes on the back end of ETH. Again, ETH Classic is an oscillator to ETH. I believe ETH Classic was actually the original Ethereum before Ethereum got the spinoff into what we know now. So we'll go back in time here. As you guys can see, just kind of giving an overall look at the charts. This was kind of a late mover, so this thing did actually not start picking up until roughly around the time that Bitcoin topped out again in February. That's when we saw the roll off in the dominance, and then the peak here was roughly about in May. So pretty much when Bitcoin was about to fall off a cliff or had already fallen off a cliff, that's when this thing started popping off and topped out. GXLM, this one does not have a lot of history. So again, we basically got the release of this around the peak of the cycle. So we'll take a look at XLM. So we'll go to the XLM chart here. We have not actually covered this particular altcoin on our channel before, so this is going to be a first. As you guys can see, having back here, there was a little bit of a price markup on Stellar, but it was kind of more or less just up, down, and sideways, so mostly consolidation. And again, Stellar started moving pretty heavily once Bitcoin got past its all-time highs. As you guys can see, the peak for Stellar was, again, roughly about the same time as ETCG. So I guess at this point, it would be fair to say that when ETCG tops out, Stellar likely is going to top out too, which again is going to be when the Bitcoin dominance rolls over and Bitcoin has hit its previous or hit its future new all-time high during the cycle. So ETH-E, this one is pretty old. I think it's one of the older Grayscale trusts, if I'm not mistaken. This one in GBTC. So you can see the halving here. We kind of had a markup a little bit. Of course, Ethereum's already basically back at all-time highs, or it was at least when it was topped out recently at like 4,000. But again, it's not quite at all-time highs yet. So based on this chart, there could be a markup phase for ETH-E and Ethereum throughout the rest of the year before we see Bitcoin actually start taking off. That's pretty much what this is saying. And then, so it looks like Ethereum or the ETH-E trust starts really ramping up towards right around the time that Bitcoin would test its all-time highs in November. So if everything remains true, this won't go up until November of this year. But of course, we know that Bitcoin's at all-time highs now, so that could happen again within the next couple of months. We'll keep you guys updated on this. But very similar to the last two trusts, this thing topped out in May. And of course, we all know that Ethereum had a second higher high in November of 2021. So again, in November. So basically, based on this, it will start pushing to new all-time highs around the time of the end of this year. And then May and November in 2021. Do keep in mind this could be accelerated. So Zcash, yeah, this one wasn't around in the previous bull market for the most part. So let's take a look at the underlying here. Okay, so it's not showing it here. I got to pull up a different chart. Give me a sec, guys. So maybe let's take a look at the Gemini chart, see if we get something out of that. So here we go. Okay, so Bitcoin halving right around this time. You can see Zcash had a little bit of a markup phase. That was probably because of the DeFi summer. But Zcash didn't really start ripping until the beginning of the following year after Bitcoin's halving. So ideally, if the time frame was pushed forward one cycle, it'd be like around January of next year is what it looks like, all the way until about May of next year. And then we had kind of a lower high here based on the second peak of Bitcoin. So GSOL, once again, this one was not around, so we're going to take a look at Solana. Okay, so Solana, this thing is kind of crazy actually. I mean, the price of Solana really went just bananas in the last cycle. So again, didn't really do much back here. It was super cheap. There was a little bit of a markup phase. That was probably because of DeFi summer back then. But as you guys can see, Solana didn't really start moving up seriously until the first year of the year following the halving. So that would have been January 2021. Again, the halving was in April of 2020. So if this remains true, we're not going to see the real run up until anywhere from January to maybe as late as November of next year. And do keep in mind the Bitcoin price is already at all-time highs, so that could affect things somewhat. So here is Mana. Again, this one is still relatively new. It came out during the bear market, so we're actually going to take a look at the underlying. Okay, I really got to zoom out for this one because this token just did legendary gains last cycle. I mean, just ridiculous. You know what's funny is I was actually looking at this token when it was at 2 or 3 cents and I kind of just brushed it off. But now looking back, I really, really wish I would have bought some. Trust me, guys, even people that have been in the space for a while kind of underestimate the moves of crypto. That's how powerful these moves can be. So, yeah, pretty much same thing here. So it started going up roughly about the first month of the year following the halving. So if we were to push forward the time frame, that'd be about January of 2025. It topped out first time around May of 2021. So again, May of 2025, and also November. So that'd be November of 2025. Okay, so we're taking a look at GBAT here. This is the basic attention token. Again, this came out in the bear market. So let's go over to one of the native charts. So should get a pretty long history here with Gemini. I believe the Gemini exchange has been around for a long time, like Coinbase. So it goes back far enough. So you guys can see that May 2020 here. So the halving again was in April, and then we kind of got a little markup phase during DeFi summer. Came back down, didn't really do much. And then December of 2020, this thing started taking off. But we didn't really see the real price action on this thing until about February of 2021. So the ramp up phase started roughly again about the first month of the year following the halving, topped out in April and May, and then again in November. So if we push the time forward, it'd be sometime between basically, I would say maybe 3 months from now, all the way to the first, 5th, and 11th month of next year, or somewhere roughly around that ballpark. So here's G-Link. This is for Chainlink. So we'll go Link USD. We'll take a look at the Binance chart here. And as you guys can see, Chainlink did actually have some pretty good price appreciation. It started going up early, more so before the rest of the altcoins. Again, this was based on DeFi summer because Chainlink is now known as like some kind of smart contract Oracle protocol, whereas back then it was just a DeFi token. So there's a possibility that the G-Link Grayscale Trust could go up much sooner. So again, that time frame starts anywhere from July 2020 to as late as May 2021. And if we put that in current times, you're talking July of this year to as late as May of next year. So Phil G, this is for the Filecoin trust, but again, this one was not around during the previous cycle, so we'll take a look at that now. Okay, maybe not this one. So let's go over to this chart, which I believe is the one I have saved. So Filecoin, we do actually have quite a bit in Filecoin, just so y'all know. We're very bullish on this project. It's a DPIN project. If you guys don't know what that is, go look it up. Again, DEPIN. It's something having to do with real world use cases and real world adoption. This is like a crypto investor's dream, just so y'all know. If you guys don't know the crypto space well, basically a lot of people in crypto have been waiting for mainstream adoption, and it looks like it's about to be here, if not already. So again, March 2020, the halving was shortly after that. So it does look like Filecoin actually started moving up pretty quickly after the Bitcoin halving. So based on this, the Phil G trust could move up pretty fast. Even after this halving, we could see the price start to move I mean, literally next month. It looks like any time between basically next month to all the way to as late as March of next year, that could happen. So last one is GLIV. And again, I don't really know a whole lot about this trust. So if you guys do know something about this token, let me know down in the comments below. But I want to say it's LIV USD. No, maybe not. LPT USD. There we go. Live peer. Okay. No. Okay, we're not going to use this one because, again, this is not showing us the full history. So let's take a look at another chart. Nope. Yeah, this is kind of a problem sometimes in the crypto space, but is what it is. We just have to kind of maybe get what we can get here. LTP USD. Maybe we'll take a look at Kraken. No. Okay, here's one that gives us a little bit older history. This is kind of what I was looking for. So again, we go back in time. You guys can see during the time of the halving last cycle, there was kind of a bit of a market phase, but it was mostly just up and down and sideways, so it didn't really do much. Again, this thing didn't start popping off until about March of the following year. So again, anywhere from March to May and as late as November. So theoretically, this thing would not start moving up in value, or I should say the GLIV trust would not start moving up seriously in value until sometime around March to November of next year. And do keep in mind, any of these Grayscale trusts could go up even before the altcoin goes up. Okay, we have seen that. So Litecoin hasn't really done much. It's barely gone up in price. Bitcoin Cash has gone up, Bitcoin Cash has gone up a lot more. But even though Litecoin has not gone up that much, LTCN has actually gone up considerably. Again, Filecoin has barely moved, but the FLIG trust has moved up massively. So this is something to keep in mind. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.